Good evening, everyone, and Bruchim Haboim. Welcome. We'll begin momentarily. Thank you for joining us. Good evening, everyone. Shalom Aleichem, and welcome, Bruchim Haboim, to this evening's Tekes Ma'avar as we transition from Yom HaZikaron to Yom Haatzmaut, 73rd celebration, 73rd anniversary celebration of the founding of the State of Israel. It's an honor to represent our Chicago Jewish community coming together this evening. My name is Ruvain Brand, and I'm privileged to serve as the Rosh Kolel of our YU Torah Mitzion Kolel of Chicago. We are delighted to be joined tonight by a remarkable group of community organizations who are coming together to create this evening. We are thankful to the CRC, to Bnei Akiva, to Moshava, NCSY, Mizrahi, HTC, and significant support from Torah Mitzion in Israel for making this evening possible. I would also like to recognize our entire staff and educational team in the Kolel, specifically Rabbi Aaron Kraft, for their tremendous effort in making this evening possible. Tonight, we transition from a day of difficulty, of challenge, of reflection, to an evening and a day of celebration. And to do that, we begin with one Mizmor of Tehillim, Tehillim Chaf Gimel, chapter 23, which truly captures the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all of our periods of life, and all of our challenges in the Yom HaZikaron, taking us to Yom Haatzmaut. Hashem Roi Loech, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have been there for us this entire time. It is an honor to call upon Rabbi Elisha Prero to lead us in this parak of Tehillim. Rabbi Prero, B'chavul Gadol.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Roi Lo Echsor, B'nosteshe Yarbitzeini, Al Mei Menucha Shinahaleini, Nafshi Yeshovei, Yancheni B'magalei Tzedek L'ma'an Shemo, Gam Ki Elech B'geitz HaMoves, Lo ira ra ki ata imodi, shivtecha mishantecha, heima yenachamuni, tarach lefanai shulchan neged sororoi, vishanta v'shemen roshi, kosi rivoya, ach tov v'chesed yudufuni, kol yemei chayoi, v'shavti b'veis Adonai la.
We think, we reflect, and we remember on those fallen soldiers, on those victims of terror who gave their lives for Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Please turn your attention to the video screen for this beautiful song, Shevet Achim V'Achayot, together as Am Yisrael, with the appreciation of that land of Eretz Yisrael, which we are celebrating this evening.
30 שנה במכונית אני נוסע ומביט על מה היה מה נהיה ואיך נפשי עוד הובייה באמצע של הזריחות ירושלים בסליחות מחוף כנרת ואכזיר מהשקיעות של תל אביב אוי 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 אבי חלם להתפלל לחיות בארץ ישראל היום יביא אותי שואל מה הסיפור של ישראל כאן זה בית, כאן זה לב ואותך אני לא עוזב אבותינו שורשים ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות שבט אחים ואחיות אותה שכונה, אותו רחוב תריס אבנים של יעקב אוספים ביחד נדודים בתוך תרמיל געגועים אדם עונף מולדתו חורף קווים וכף ידו בין התפילות הנדרים רחוב בדשא הדרים ובעיניה של ליבי תמיד אמצא את מקומי על הגיטרה מתנגן ניגון עתיק שמכוון כאן זה בית, כאן זה לב ואותך אני לא עוזב אבותינו שורשים ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות שבט אחים ואחיות Jerusalem of gold and looking high more bloodless sunsets over Tel Aviv I ain't gonna trust them hate this day on the ground take up children Israel בראשית הכל תפור טלאים טלאים של הסיפור כמו שתי מילים להתחבר בחוציו של משורר אני מכאן אני שייך וכל חבר שלי כמו אח אתה פועם את לבבי אני מזרח מערבי כאן זה לב ואותך אני לא עוזב אבותינו שורשים ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות שבט אחים ואחיות כאן זה בית
At this time, it is an honor to call upon a group of families, of individuals who represent our community, both here in Chicago and in Israel, connecting us to the land in a unique and special way. It is an honor to call upon an extended family who is going to make a special journey and for them to share a message with us, as well as one of our own who has gone on this journey alone. Please turn your attention to the video screen.
Hi, we're the Roses. Hi, we're the Shakers. And we're really excited to make Aliyah, God willing, this summer. We love the Chicago community and appreciate everything that they've done for us. And we really hope to see everyone there soon. Aliyah 2021!
Hello Chicago, Yedida Rose Masi here, formerly from Wisconsin Sparks, speaking to you from Kav Lebanon, the Lebanese border here in northern Israel. And I just wanted to share with you a small thought in Yom Haatzmaut and why I feel this day is so important, why we can't be taking it for granted. Because if you think about it, the Jewish people, we shouldn't really have Independence Day. If you just look at the historical record of all the enemies we faced, just historically speaking, statistically, we shouldn't really be here, right? If you think about all the massacres and persecutions, the pogroms, the genocide, the slavery that we've been through, that we all share as a memory of our historical past, we shouldn't really be where we are today, let alone a self-determining nation return to its ancestral homeland. And it's something that we have to give a hodah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single day, and something which truly our ancestors never could have really dreamed of. But there was one thing that sustained us through it all, right? That throughout our traumatic past, there was one thing that kept us going. It was this hope, and it was the faith that one day we would be redeemed, we would be returned to Eretz Yisrael. We say it every single day in davening, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should return us to Eretz Yisrael. And nowadays we live with the availability and the accessibility and the ability to live in Eretz Yisrael. And all we need is the willpower. This willpower to have the courage to come back to where we all belong, to live in Eretz Yisrael in unity. Almost half of us are already here, and we're hoping that in Yemei Geula, that we'll see everybody here very, very soon.
Tonight in Israel, there are 12 torches being lit, commensurate with the 12 Shvatim, the 12 tribes. Tonight, there are actually 14 people who are lighting these 12 torches. And we have two wonderful, outstanding Bnei Akiva student leaders, Shira David and Sarah Friedman, who are here this evening to present two of those torchbearers. B'chavod Rav, Shira David.
The first torchbearer we chose to highlight was Ofri Butbul, who is the youngest of the torchbearers. She is 18 and is in the 12th grade in Afkim. She volunteers for Siriyat Chesed Yechidit and helps with an elderly man living home alone. At the beginning of the pandemic, he fell while he was home, but since Ofri went to visit him every day, she found him and was able to call Hatzalah, which ultimately saved his life. Sarah will talk about the second torchbearer.
The second torchbearer who we chose to highlight was Ron Saran or Cohen, who serves in Sahel and is in charge of recruiting volunteer soldiers. Since he took this position, the number of volunteer soldiers recruited in the IDF has increased by 25%. In addition, he volunteers with 6 children in the hospital.
It is our honor now to call upon Kobe Greenfield to share with us the tefillah, the prayer for the Israeli soldiers.
Thank you, Rabbi Brand. We should all have in mind the Israeli soldiers, the ones we know and the ones we also don't know, serving, protecting our nation and all of Klal Yisrael. Misheberach Avoseinu Abraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Hu yivarech es chaylei tzva Haganah Yisrael homdim al mishmar artzeinu v'arei Eloheinu migbul halvanon ba'amidbar mitzrayim min hayam hagadol al levo harava ba'yabasha ba'aviru v'yam yitein Adonai et oivenu hakamim aleinu negafim lifnehem hakadosh baruch hu yishmor v'yatzil et chayleinu mikol tzara v'tzuka o mikol nega o machala v'yishach b'chavatzecha b'chol ma'aseh yedehem Yidbersonem sonenu tachtehem, ve'atchem echesa Yeshua b'teres nitzachon, v'kiyam b'hem ha'kasuv, Kadnai alechem holech imachem, hilochem lechem imoy vechem, lo shiaschem, v'nomar amen.
Amen.
We are the IDF. We come from every part of Israel, and we work together to defend our families,
our friends,
our homes.
We may look different.
We may come from different regions and statuses and backgrounds.
But that's our key to success.
We work together to find solutions to impossible problems.
We are a combination of differences.
And we are better because of each and every one.
We are the people's army.
The people of Israel, protecting the people of Israel.
we are everyone. And we are proud.
At this time, it is an honor to introduce one of our beloved alumni, a Rebbe in Ida Crown Jewish Academy, and a distinguished member of our Chicago community, Rabbi Meir Simcha Stromer, to deliver this year's special Yom Haatzmaut remarks. B'chavod Rav, of Meir Simcha Stromer.
Okay, thank you so much, Rabbi Brand. Can we hear me? Get a thumbs up. Those who are on Zoom, we can hear. Okay, good. Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Rishus Rabbi Brand, all the other Rabbanim on the call. Thank you so much for having me. I wanted to share the following idea. But when I think about before I think about anytime I think about Yom Haatzmaut, I have to reflect upon my experiences in Shalavim. As a Hezbollah yeshiva, we were very much into celebrating all the days related to Eretz Yisrael, and it was in a way that I never really quite experienced before. But specifically, something that I found unique to Shalavim was that every single Erev Shabbos, not specific to Yom Haatzmaut, every single Erev Shabbos, the Israelis would get together and they'd sit around the table in the Beis Medrash and they would sing, they would lein Shir Hashirim together. And I'm not much of a Baal Koreh. I don't know what a lot of the words in Shir Hashirim mean, but I used to sit in the back of the Beis Medrash and I would listen from afar, and it was always really beautiful. I never wanted to go there because I always picked on one of the Bachurim to read, and I was always afraid of doing that. But I'd sit in the back and I'd listen. And I came across the following idea on Shir Hashirim that I really think is apropos for Yom Haatzmaut. If you look at the penultimate pasuk in Shir Hashirim, the second to last pasuk in Shir Hashirim, it says, Hayoshevis baganim chaverim makshivim lekolech hashmi'ini. And Rashi and Chazal explain that the malachim are the chaverim, and they would come to the ganim, they'd come to the gardens. And that's where we, Bnei Yisrael, were. We were dispersed all throughout the Galus in random gardens throughout foreign lands. And we'd get together. And we'd learn Torah and we would daven and we'd do amazing things. And the malachim would go crazy. They'd be telling each other, Chevra, look what Jewish people are doing. Come over here in Shemayim, look down at Klal Yisrael. And they'd get HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they'd tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu how great we're doing. And when we look at what we're doing, what we're accomplishing in Galus, Mamish is amazing. You go through all of Shir Hashirim and it's the Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li, and we're trying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Meitzitz Min HaCharokim, and he's called Dodi Dofik, and he's knocking and he's trying to, and back and forth, and finally at the very end of Shir Hashirim, the Malachim saying, Hashem, look at the Jewish people. And you're expecting the Jewish people to ride off into the sunset with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if you look at the very last pasuk in Shir Hashirim, it says, Brach Dodi, flee, be like a gazelle, a deer, run away, and go al Hare Bisamim, go to the beautiful smelling mountain, a reference to Ha Moriah, Harabayas, the Beis HaMikdash, and go there. And Rabbi Lamb points out that as good as Galus is, it's Galus. And we have to remember that. We're not in Eretz Yisrael. We don't have a Beis HaMikdash. We're not where we're supposed to be. And that's something that we need to remember. My dear friend, I don't know if he's on this call now, but Dr. David Margulis shared with me a very beautiful observation. He says, if you look at the very first interaction HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with the Avos, there's something very striking. The Torah tells us in Sefer Bereshis, Vayomer Hashem el Avram, Lech Lecha. We're all familiar with this. Go mi'artzecha, mi'moladecha, mi'beis avicha, el ha'aretz asher reka. Go to the land, go to Eretz Yisrael. When first interacting with Yitzchak Avinu, it says, Al terid Mitzrayma, shchon ba'aretz, live in this land. And again, with Yaakov Avinu, the very first interaction. And in fact, it's actually two. Once in a dream, and then when he actually interacts with Yaakov Avinu. In the dream, right, we know the Sulam is Mutzav Artzav, Rosh Magiya Shemaima. We know Malachim are going up and down. Hashem is Nitzav Alav. Hashem is standing at the top of it. And Hashem calls out to Yaakov Avinu and says, I am the God of Avram. I'm the God of Yitzchak. Ha'aretz asher ata shocheh baleha, lecha etnena ulezarecha. I'm going to give it to you. This land, it's yours and your children's land. It's for you. And then again, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with Yaakov Avinu, not in a dream, but in person. When Yaakov Avinu is preparing to leave Lavan's house, Vayomer Hashem el Yaakov, Shuv el Eretz Avosecha. Go back to your land. Ve'hayeh yimach, I will be with you. We're aware of Maisa Avos, Simin Labanim. But if you look at the very first interaction HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with the Avos, it's even more jarring. It's even more acute. We have to recognize that we are not where we're supposed to be. As good as Galus is, it is still Galus, and we have to remember that. My Rebbe Rav Meir Tversky Shlita once gave us a shir in NCSY Kolo many summers ago, and he spoke about being a religious Zionist living in New York, living in Chutz La'aretz. And he told us the story that there was once a Jew who lived in a very strong Jewish community. He wouldn't tell us which one it was, but you can pick whichever one you want. And this man traveled a long way to go hear a shir from Rav Soloveitchik. And after the shir, he made it a point to go over and give Shalom Aleichem to the Rav. And the Rav said, after a little bit of small talk, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I'm from this and this community." And Rav Soloveitchik responded, "A fantastic community, except they forget they're in Golus." And sometimes, I humbly suggest we also forget. We have to remember we're not where we're supposed to be. The Jewish people belong in Eretz Yisrael. That's what you should be thinking about. If not in the immediate future, in the next to immediate future. How are we going to get there? What are we going to do there? How can we bring our families, our friends, our communities to Eretz Yisrael? And I just want to close with one final idea. Many of us are familiar that when Moshe Rabbeinu, towards the end of his life, he davened 515 tefillos to get into Eretz Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said no. But the Medrash actually elaborates on this dialogue. And Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu back and forth. And one of the tainas, one of the reasons Moshe Rabbeinu suggested to be allowed into Eretz Yisrael was that he was carrying the bones of Yosef for the past 40 years in the Midbar in order to bury them in Eretz Yisrael. And now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're not going to allow me to get into Eretz Yisrael with the bones of Yosef? What's going on here? And the Medrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu responded. He said, yeah, but Yosef called himself an Ish Ivri. He was someone he was a Hebrew. He belonged in the land of Israel. But you were called an Ish Mitzri, and you didn't protest. You didn't say anything. So the Rishonim and Achronim point out that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't present, right? It was Yisro's daughters that said it was this Ish Mitzri who helped us out. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't there. But I heard an even stronger question to ask, and that's the following. The truth was Moshe Rabbeinu was an Ish Mitzri. He was born in Egypt. So how could HaKadosh Baruch Hu have a taina on Moshe Rabbeinu? He was being honest. He heard he was called an Ish Mitzri, and he didn't protest because Itaka was an Ish Mitzri. So what's going on here? How could HaKadosh Baruch Hu say, yeah, you called yourself an Ish Mitzri, you're an Ish Mitzri, you're not going to be allowed into Israel? He was an Ish Mitzri. What's going on? And the answer is that it doesn't matter where we're from. It doesn't matter where we live. A Yid, a Jew, is a Ben Eretz Yisrael and a Bas Eretz Yisrael. And no matter where we are, we have to identify Ani Yehudi Eretz Yisrael. Forget all the politics and the Tzionim and the Charedim and all that Narishkeit, all that Kleinakite stuff that doesn't matter and it's insignificant. At the end of the day, a Jew belongs in Eretz Yisrael. And that's what we have to remember. Ani Yehudi Eretz Yisrael.
בכל מקום, כל הזמן, יש לכולנו מגדול ועד קטן, ימים יפים וגם פחות, וביניהם תשובה לכל השאלות. יש אלוהים, אחד גדול, ובעולם הזה נותן לנו הכל, ונפלא לקרנו, את הנתיב אנחנו רק צריכים לבחור, וזה ידוע חיים ומתנה, הכל צפוי ברשות נתונה. מי שמאמין לא מפחד, את האמונה לאבד, ולנו יש את מלך העולם, והוא שומר אותנו מכולם. מי שמאמין לא מפחד, את האמונה לאבד, ולנו יש את מלך העולם, והוא שומר אותנו מכולם. העם הזה הוא משפחה, אחד ועוד אחד זה סוד ההצלחה. עם ישראל לא יוותר, תמיד על המפה אנחנו נשאר, וזה ידוע חיים ומתנה, הכל צפוי והרשות נתונה. מי שמאמין
To express our thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we ask Rabbi Tzvi Engel, Rabbi of Congregation or Torah, to lead us in the Shir HaMalos.
Shir HaMalot, B'shuv Adonai et Shivat Zion, Hayinu kecholmin. Az Yimales Chokpinu Uloshonenu Rina. Az Yomru Vagoyim, Higdil Adonai La'asot im Eile. Higdil Adonai La'asot imanu, Hayinu Semechim. Shuva Adonai et Shivitenu Ka'afikim Banegev. Hazorim Bedima Berina Yiktsoru. Haloch Yelech Uvacho Nosei Meshech Hazara. Bo Yavo Verina Nosei Alumotav.
And thank you. It is a great honor this evening to welcome the Consul General to represent the State of Israel to our gathering this evening. Please welcome Consul General Aviv Ezra. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Bruchim Habayim.
Bruchim Hanimtzaim. Shalom, everybody. Just make sure that that's great. I can see that you can hear me. Erev Tov. Good evening. Ani Yehudi Me'eretz Yisrael. Yehudi Me'eretz Yisrael Ge'eh, a proud Jew from the land of Israel. And I'm listening very carefully to everything that you're saying here, and it just gives me so much pride. It's so much joy. And you know what? It's just kind of a aha moment, a preaching to the choir, if I can use this kind of a terminology in this crowd here, because you had me at Shalom, right? And I really want to thank all of you. And I see so many great friends here with us. I want to thank you for having me today. The ability to bring some greetings on behalf of the State of Israel, on behalf of the Consulate of Israel, and really thanking you for having me at this celebration of 73rd year of Israeli Independence Day. Many of you know that earlier today, a siren sounded for a whole minute when everything halted in Israel, from synagogues, shuls, streets. And each year on Yom HaZikaron, we remember, of course, the fallen heroes that have paid that unbelievable price to make sure that we can celebrate this Independence Day. And the combination and the movement and the mind-boggling change from Yom HaZikaron to Independence Day is so hard for so many. And we know that here, I don't need to explain the wording of Bemotam Tzivu Lanu et HaChaim. And what I believe is that the Chaim, Shem Tzivu Lanu, is not just the mere survivability of Israel, and not just have Israel survive, but rather Israel thrive. And this is what I'm seeing here with this beautiful Magen David that was just mentioned a couple of seconds ago. Let me say, it truly is a miracle. We know that. We talk about it every day. Miracle of sovereignty, the return to the homeland after 2,000 years. Who would have believed? This is just miraculous. The miracle of safety, the ability that Israel has today to defend itself by itself. The miracle of a voice, to be able to speak on ourselves without needing anybody to speak for us, like unfortunately we needed through history. The miracle of being able to study Torah and the Judaism, express and practice our Judaism freely. The freedom, the miracle of demography. In 1948, there were about 800,000 Jews. Today we're 9 million and more people in the state of Israel. The miracle of health. Israel is the first to come out of this horrible pandemic. This is just a miracle, sheer miracle. The miracle of innovation, the miracle of the economy, the miracle of peace. Just recently, in the midst of everything, we have 4 more Arab countries that are joining the peace accords with Israel. The miracle of the bond with the United States of America, the miracle of the bond with the Midwest. And altogether, truthfully, is just mind-boggling and could not be explained unless you really understand that Misha Ma'amid lo mefached, and there is a Shem that has specific plan for this people, for his people, for the people, for the Jewish people. Let me just say on a personal note, I am going to be ending my tenure here as the Consul General of Israel to the Midwest come this summer. And as I said, I think we're need to zoom out for a second and say how amazing it is that a Jew can extract himself, board a plane, and today we're going to have a nonstop flight from May to Israel and 11 hours. And I'm taking that as a legacy with me. So when you board the plane, remember me, and being able to come back to the homeland. And I just want to end by saying that during those almost 5 years of spending time here in the Midwest, I've had the ability of meeting governors, members of Congress, US senators, state legislators, mayors, students, many, many friends. Some of them are very close, like you, to Israel in the sense of understanding everything that is happening, but many of them are not necessarily aware of things that are happening. And I came up with 10 commandments of advocacy that I would like to share with you that I've learned through these 5 years here in the Midwest. And it will be very short, don't worry about it. So the first one I think is crucially to important, and it was mentioned here, that the people of Israel, and by the way, Menachem Begin, some of them are going to be very clear for you, but Menachem Begin, our famous prime minister, said that sometimes even the things that are clear should be stated again and again. So number one is that the people of Israel live in the state of Israel that is located in the land of Israel by historical right and not just by military might. And this is something that people don't always remember and needs to be mentioned. Number two, never take Israel for granted. Many of our kids live in my generation lives in a world that Israel is there. It was always there. Well, it was not always there. And many of our previous generation know what happened when Israel was not there. So never take Israel for granted. Three, never again does not mean that the Holocaust cannot happen again. Never again means that the Jewish people will never again be stateless and defenseless. Because if it happened once, it could happen again. Number four, we have to keep telling the stories to the children, to the grandchildren. Never assume that the kids know. And I'm telling you, I go to Hillels, I travel to students. Our kids, they don't know the basics. I'm not saying that in criticism. There's a lot on their plate. I get it. But we got to repeat the story. Keep it simple and repeating the story. And I know I'm preaching to the choir once again because this community does that relentlessly and it's crucial. Number five, we need to educate ourselves all the time. And if there's any info that is lacking, reach out to us, reach out to our friends with our other organizations and your shul and your rabbis. They will always be able to educate you. Number six, the bipartisan support to the state of Israel right here in the United States is crucial. And Israel could not and should not ever be a partisan issue in the United States. And this is crucial to mention it here because of the sensitivities that we're all familiar. Number seven, Israel was never and never will be perfect, but you got to help us make it better from within and do it in the constructive manner and not from the outside. Number eight, never be silent when the Jewish right for sovereignty or self-defense is attacked. Sometimes it's easier just to stay quiet, but we cannot afford it, unfortunately. Number nine, each one of your congregates and friends has to find and can find his advocacy style, from political advocacy to economic cooperation, cultural inroads, whatever it is. Pick it. That is your additional added value. And last but not least, come to Israel. Bring your friends, family. The more, the merrier. And as I promised and I delivered, I have a mechanism which is much easier now with a lousy kosher meal and 2 movies, and you're on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. My dear friends, I want to thank you so much for your leadership, especially the friends that are right here. I'm not going to mention names, but many of them are great friends of ours, of mine personally. I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for your relentless impact on the next generation. Please continue to be our voice. Please continue to be our ambassadors out there. And I want to wish all of you and all of yours Chag Atzmaut Sameach.
Thank you so much, Consul General Ezra. We wish you and bless you. Hatzlacha Rabbah in your transition back. Turn your attention, please, to the screen for a special recognition of Israel during this very unusual and challenging time in the world. What a Kiddush Hashem, and to celebrate this and to daven for this, we are honored as we conclude this evening's program to welcome our Av Bezdin, Rabbi Yonah Rees, to share with us this evening the Tefillah L'Shlom HaMedina, followed by Sfiras HaOmer by our own Rosh Chabur, Rabbi Aaron Kraft. Rabbi Rees.
Avinu Shabashamayim, Sor Yisrael v'Goalo, Barech es Medinas Yisrael, Ve'eshis Tzmichas Gulasenu, Hagen Ole Be'ras Chastecha, Ufos Ale Sukasa Shlomecha, Ushlach Orcha V'Mitcha L'Rosheh Soreh V'Yortzeh, V'Sakanei Meitzah Tova Melpanecha, Chazek es Yidei Meginei Eretz Kachenu, V'Anchilei Eloheinu Yeshua, V'Ateres Nitzachon Teaterem, V'Nasata Shalom Ba'aretz, V'Simchas Olam Li'Yoshebeha. V'Sachenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Pigadana B'Chol Artzos B'Zurayim, V'Solichem Mehera Komius L'Tzioni Recha, V'Yushalayim Mishkan Shemecha, Kakasuv B'Soras Moshe Avdecha, Im Yev Nidachcha B'Ktzei HaShemayim, Misham Yikabetzcha Adonai Elohecha, U'Misham Yikachecha, V'Ebiyacha Adonai Elohecha El Haaretz Asher Yarshu Avosecha V'Yishtah, V'Yitzibacha V'Yebecha Me'avosecha. Umal Adonai Elohecha es levavecha ves levav zarecha li'ava es Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha b'chol nafshecha l'man chayecha v'yached levavenu li'ava u'liyira es Hashemecha v'lishmor es kol divrei Torasecha u'shlach lanu meira ben David Mashiach tzidkecha l'ftos mechakei kates Yeshuasecha hofa b'hadar geon uzecha al kol yoshvei sevel artzecha v'yomar kol asher neshama be'apo Adonai Elohei Yisrael melech u'malchuso b'kol mashallah. Amen. Selah.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al siras ha'omer hayom shmona asar yom shehem shnei shavuos v'arba'a yamim la'omer.
We call upon David Rosenwasser to conclude this evening with Hatikva and Lashana Haba. Just need to unmute, David. I think you are muted. There you go.
Nefesh Yehudi Hamiyah Ulefatei Mizrach Kadima Ayin Letzion Tzafiyah Allah Avdatik Hatikva b'shnot alfayim li'adam chavshi b'atzenu Eretz Tzion v'Yerushalayim Li'odam Chofshi Be'atzenu Eretz Tzion v'Yerushalayim Shana Ba B'Yerushalayim Shana Ba B'Yerushalayim Shana Ba B'Yerushalayim Shana Ba B'Yerushalayim Abya Shana Ba B'Yerushalayim Shana Ba B'Yerushalayim L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim abnuya.
Thank you all for coming. Yom Haatzmaut Sameach. Have a beautiful Yom Haatzmaut. Thank you all. Yasher Koach. L'shon haba next year in Yerushalayim with the Geula Shlema. Kol Tov, everyone. Have a beautiful and